Last year,
It's happened!
they went and took it.
He struck him out looking!
This year,
The Texas Rangers win the World Series!
they're here to run it back.
It's over!
This is Bleav in Texas Rangers, hosted by Mitch Ferreldis.
Welcome into another episode of Bleav in Texas Rangers. Be sure if you like what you're listening to, you like, subscribe, and be sure to share the podcast with your friends to get all of your bite-sized Rangers content multiple times during the week. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and you can find Bleav in Texas Rangers on the YouTube channel. So we're going to start just by briefly brushing over the fact that the Rangers were able to end another losing streak, another 6-game losing streak, as a matter of fact. They lost the first 3 to the Orioles in Baltimore, but then they were able to bounce back in a massive way with a huge 11-2 win on Sunday in prime time. And so many things to like about that one game in particular, but generally speaking, the fact that this team continues to play as inconsistent as they do has me worried still. And I think we're getting to a point where we can no longer say, oh, it's early in the year, this team's going to figure it out eventually. Well, they're not early in the year anymore. It's July. We're recording this on July 2nd on this Tuesday. I don't know at what point we can comfortably say that it's early anymore. It's no longer early. Like, what's happening right now is who the Rangers are for the most part. And again, we've gone devil's advocates so much all season long. We've pointed out the fact that injuries have really hampered this team, a lot of them being starting pitching. One of the key injuries we're still waiting on is Josh Young. We have an update on him that we'll share at the end of the episode. But for the most part, a key majority of the guys have still been active on this roster. Corey Seager's been up and down with injury, but he's really turned it on the last couple of months. Marcus Semien has been a mainstay in the lineup. He started to dip in production just a tad, but you know, he's fighting for all-star contention right now. Adolis Garcia, it's been a very rough season for Adolis, but he's still producing a lot of RBIs. Nathaniel Lowe had a great return from his injury when he came back, and then he had an excellent series against the Orioles and against the Brewers. So as far as like the hitting is concerned, you would think that consistency, that this team would be able to produce the way that they have. Now, they're still missing Josh Young, as I said. They're missing Evan Carter, who's a key part of their lineup and their defense. So I get it. There's still pieces missing. And you could say the same for the pitching. Like Nate Eovaldi has been up and down all year. They're once again starting the year without Jacob deGrom, who's dealing with yet another severe injury. Max Scherzer didn't even pitch until a couple series ago against the Royals and then pitched again against the Orioles. This team is not whole. I get that. But at the same time, they have to find ways to continue to win when a majority of the guys that they have are still healthy and available. And the fact that they've made the most of a couple of their veteran signings, like one that we're going to talk about in just a second, Derek Hill. Oh my goodness. He's all of a sudden become the best offensive hitter on the team. That's obviously way too far, but he had a great weekend against the Orioles at a time when the Rangers desperately needed some offensive firepower. He provided it. You could say the same for the back end of the bullpen that Chris Young signed, getting David Robertson and Kirby Yates to veteran deals. Like, he's put together a good team. It's just the production has not been there as we now enter the month of July. So as things stand right now, when we look at the standings really quickly, and then we'll get into all the good things that happened in the Sunday win against the Orioles. The Rangers are currently third place in the American League West. They trail the Astros by 5 games. Remember, we said this several weeks ago, that there's no way that the Astros are going to be held down for long. Well, as it turns out, they would not be held down for long. They've won 9 of their last 10 games. Granted, some of them were against the Colorado Rockies, but still, they're winning the games on their schedule that they need to win. And as a result, they've completely bumped their run differential into the positive in a tremendous way. They're sitting in the 30s right now. They're 43-41. So that Astros team, that was a basement dweller for the first month and a half of the season. They're now second place and 3 games out of first place for the American League West. The Mariners have really struggled as of late. And right now, the best team in the division appears to be the Astros. So I'm not going to rule out a chance of the division. It's still within single digit games for the Rangers, but at the same time, the Angels are nipping at their heels, just a game and a half back of Texas as we look at this on this Tuesday. In the wild card standings, the Rangers are currently 8 out of a wild card spot, and most of that is because the American League East has been highly competitive this year. The American League Central has been surprisingly competitive this year. If you want to feel better, the Astros are also out of a playoff spot right now, so they're technically not in. But like the New York Yankees are a game worse than the Baltimore Orioles this year. So it's one of the two of them are going. The Minnesota Twins are only a few games back of the Cleveland Guardians, who have been the surprise of the year, given all the turnover that they had this offseason. And then the Kansas City Royals and Seattle Mariners have equal records. One of them is leading the division. The other one is in third place in their division. So safe to say that this is going to be a stretch run worth watching, because really all but two teams in the American League, and it's pretty much the same in the National League too, all but two teams in the American League are in the postseason race. The Rangers are very much one of them, but they're not playing like the team that we remember from last year. So maybe things will improve, maybe things will change. And two guys that could be catalysts for that change. Well, three guys. I want to talk about Max Scherzer second start as well. But we're going to start with the unknown commodity that has been Derek Hill, who has been up and down this season with this team. Has kind of been filling as an injury void. For those of you that are unaware who Derek Hill is, he's a former first-round pick in 2014 taken by the Tigers, and he didn't debut until 2020 during the COVID year with those very same Tigers. After a few years, he found his way to Seattle, where he was claimed off of waivers after Derek was designated for assignment. Shortly after the end of that 2022 season, Hill was once again designated for assignment by the Mariners. In the offseason, he signed a minor league deal with the Washington Nationals, found his way to no big league trips, I should say. No big league trips for Derek Hill that year. Was dealing with an injury for most of the 2023 season. But at the end of that year, he elected free agency, found his way to the Texas Rangers on a non-roster invite contract. And would you look at that? He had 3 home runs in the last 2 games. His series against Baltimore, it's not blow you away stuff, but it was, oh my gosh, Derek Hill, is he just going to help save this team while we wait for the likes of Evan Carter and Josh Young to return, and while we wait for Leody Taveras' bat to wake up? So he had the 2 home runs against Baltimore on Sunday, finished 2 for 4 with the 2 runs, drove in 3 runs, and walked once. That was his best game so far this season. The game before, he had a solo home run, but just in 2 at-bats. And then in the game before that, he also had a hit. And then going back to the 26th against Milwaukee, he's on a 4-game hitting streak right now. Modest, but he's also showing signs of power. And it's not easy to hit home runs in Camden Yards. It is if you're a left-handed hitter and you're hitting the right field, as we've seen from Corey Seager and Nathaniel Lowe. But that right field bite that they took out of the stands last year to really stretch out that outfield, it's made it a lot more difficult for some of these right-handed hitters to get that home run ball. And as a matter of fact, Derek Hill had no issue. Wyatt Langford, who we'll touch on in a sec, had no issue getting it over that left field wall. This was encouraging, and this was a nice surprise, I guess would be the best way I could describe Derek Hill. Because look, he's on his 3rd team now, 4th team now, technically. And it's at this point in a career where you've bounced around for a few years, you've only hung out in the minors, that I don't want to assume for Derek Hill, but you start to question how much longer you want to keep going at this. And I never want to discount a person's passion for what they want to do. And I'm always supportive of the idea of keep grinding at it. Like, I myself in my career path, but he's a 28-year-old who was drafted in 2014. He's been in Major League Baseball systems for 10 years. That's a long time to, mostly hang around in the minors. So I hope Derek Hill can keep this production up. I hope he can stick, whether it's with the Rangers or it's some other Major League team that could use the help. But very positive weekend for Derek Hill. You know who else it was a really positive weekend for?
Wyatt Watch.
A fantastic finish to the series for Wyatt. Went 0 for 4 in the Thursday game against the Orioles. Went 1 for 2, walked a couple of times in game 2. 1 for 4 in the Saturday game, struck out in that one. And then the best game of his career, the cycle, in Sunday. 4 for 5. He scored 3 times, double, triple home run, and the single, of course. He drove in 4 runs and he collected 10 total bases. His first career cycle, of course, as a rookie. There was a stat that when I saw it, I had to think about how Wyatt's season has gone. And when I think about it in retrospect, I'm like, wow, he's actually had a really impressive season. Here it is. Per Elias Sports Bureau, Wyatt Langford is the first rookie in MLB history to complete an inside the park homer, a grand slam, and a cycle in the same season. Wyatt Langford is the only person to have an inside the park home run, a grand slam, and a cycle in the same season. That feels unfathomable. And if you're asking like, well, how rare is that? Well, it's pretty rare, clearly, since he was the first rookie to ever do it. But you also don't hear a lot of candidates that have, even non-rookies, like veterans. Like Aaron Judge has hit grand slams. Aaron Judge has not hit for the cycle, though. Aaron Judge has not hit an inside the park home run, though. Mike Trout has not hit for the cycle. Mike Trout has hit grand slams, though. Like, thinking about the aspects that are required of getting a single, a double, a triple, and a home run in the same game, and then in a different game, hitting an inside the park home run, that requires a lot of speed and a lot of benefit of the park that you play in. And then the other one being a grand slam, one, you have to benefit from your teammates being on base, and 2, you have to benefit from the power of your bat providing those runs being batted in and that ball being driven out of the yard. And I'm gonna tie in a story that MLB.com dropped today, doing their Rookie of the Year race update. Because as we know, going into the year, Wyatt Langford was easily the runaway favorite to win Rookie of the Year going into the year. And he got off to that kind of slow start, but the odds don't move that much after, the first month. But then what happened was other rookies started to really come on, in particular, Luis Gil, the pitcher for the Yankees. That's who a lot of people in this MLB.com story have picked as their favorite for Rookie of the Year. Got 25 of the first place votes. Second behind him is Mason Miller, the hard-throwing closer of the A's. He got 5 of the first place votes. That makes sense. If you're going to highlight anyone on the Oakland Athletics, it's definitely Mason Miller. He's probably going to be their all-star representative this year. Number 3, Colton Cowser, who got 8 of the first place votes. So Mason Miller got more votes in other weighted areas, but Colton Cowser got enough first place votes that led to his rise on this. He'd had a dry spell there for a second, but as we saw against the Rangers this weekend, he had a couple of home runs, and he's beloved among the Orioles faithful. Fourth on this list is Wilyer Abreu, who the Red Sox got when they traded away Christian Vasquez. So he's a former Houston Astro. So I think by law we're supposed to dislike him because he's related to the Astros system. He's had a good season. He just came back from injury for the Red Sox. I don't know that he's had a necessarily better season given what he's accomplished in comparison to Wyatt, but he's been an important part of the Red Sox success this year. And then 5th on this list, Wyatt Langford. And I will point out, he did receive 1 first place vote from the writers who put together this MLB.com story. I think generally speaking, if I were to make the claim today, no, I don't think he's going to win Rookie of the Year. However, the way he's performed in the last month leads me to believe that he could still push his way into the conversation. Luis Gil, he's had a couple of rough outings his last go about. Mason Miller, I'm not going to say he gets buried on an Oakland A's team that is miserable, but he is the best player on the Oakland A's. And most people associate one person with a team that they don't pay much attention to. And right now, Mason Miller is the guy that most people associate with the Oakland A's. So he's not going to get forgotten anytime soon. Colton Cowser with the Orioles, it would be back-to-back years. Gunnar Henderson won it last year. If Colton Cowser were to get it again. But I don't know that he plays enough or consistently enough to really make a push for that award. I could be wrong. You could say the same thing for Wilyer Abreu, who's been a bright spot for the Red Sox, as I mentioned. Wyatt Langford has a real opportunity to get himself back in contention for the Rookie of the Year. And that only happens if Luis Gil has a really rough post All-Star stretch. That really only happens if Mason Miller gets traded to a team that is not in the American League. That really only happens if Colton Cowser, as I mentioned, starts to struggle completely. That really only happens if Wilyer Abreu continues to, contribute at a moderate pace, but not at a Rookie of the Year pace. He's still a good hitter, but I don't know if he's going to win Rookie of the Year the way he's continuing to play. Given everything that Wyatt has accomplished in just one season, I think there's a fair argument that he could still win the Rookie of the Year as long as he continues to contribute at the pace that he's contributing right now, like hitting 300 for the month of June. He's got to keep it that pace. Otherwise, it will be a lost race. Not that we'd be upset, but it would be nice to see a Ranger win the Rookie of the Year. It's been a minute. So Max Scherzer has been back for a couple of starts now. He had the one start against the Royals that went really well. He had 5 innings. They only kept him at around the 70 pitch mark, and we shouldn't be surprised by that. It was his first start back of the season. And then on Friday, he pitched again, this time pitching into the 6th inning. Didn't go as well as his previous start, but that's semantical. 5 1/3 innings, 77 pitches, 53 of them strikes. So the strike to ball ratio was still really good. Allowed 4 hits, 4 runs, and struck out 4. And he was able to get 10 swing and miss strikes, which is really good. That's Max Scherzer-esque, right? Because he's a strikeout pitcher. But this is the second start in a row where he's only amassed a 5-inning total, and he's gotten to the 70 pitch mark. So they're really slow playing him up. It unfortunately ended with a loss, and one of those losses that you really can't blame Scherzer for. There's not much else he could have done. The offense just could not produce that day. They got a total of 4 hits. To the Orioles 5, but the Orioles produced an extra run. This is encouraging in the sense that he hasn't shown any signs of battling injury. I know there was the scare after his Royals start where we were wondering whether or not he was going to be able to go against the Orioles. And now they're going to need him again with the Padres coming into town this weekend, because as of right now, Max Scherzer's their best pitcher. I think that's a fair statement, is that Max Scherzer, as of right now, in this rotation, is their best pitcher, because John Gray had a stinker against the Orioles on Thursday. And that was a bummer, because John has had some excellent outings this year in what has been a surprise campaign for John. Nathan Eovaldi has been up and down this year, as we mentioned, with the injuries, but also up and down in terms of how good he's been when he's been on the mound. It's just here nor there. Dane Dunning, same deal. Michael Lorenzen has had some quality starts, but it's hard when the offense doesn't produce behind him. He hasn't had as many stinkers, so to speak, but it's hard to produce the wins that you need when the pitchers are only getting so much help. So this rotation needs Max Scherzer right now. And lest we forget, we're still waiting on Tyler Mahle, who was signed this offseason and has been rehabbing all of the year. Cody Bradford, who has had his injuries return delayed as a result of the rib fracture, as we learned, but he had a great start to the season. And then, of course, Jacob deGrom, who's the prize cow of the last offseason, the offseason prior, I should say, and immediately got hurt and is still working his way back. And he may not even be around until next month, maybe even the end of next month. So the Rangers really need the best out of Max Scherzer. And even though he's not pitching a ton, they're really getting that right now. So it's encouraging in terms of a rotation that has been very much patchwork the entire year. All right, let's transition to All-Star Weekend. That's only a couple weeks away. The focus right now for you Rangers fans should very much be trying to get Marcus Semien to win the second base All-Star starting spot. He's going against Jose Altuve. Yesterday, they gave a standings update. Remember, with this phase 2, you can only vote once a day. So if you're going to vote, you might as well vote every single day. Right now, Jose Altuve has 56% of the vote. That was as of yesterday. Marcus Semien has 44%. And part of that is in parallel with the fact that Altuve has played really well in the Astros' recent 10-game stretch where they've won 9 of those 10. And Marcus Semien has really struggled in that same 10-game stretch. And it's really taken a dip to his numbers. Like his batting average is now below 240. His OPS is now below 700. Like even though he's got the home runs and the RBIs, the other stats that people look at to determine, the fans look at, I should say, to determine whether or not someone should start an all-star game or not, they're blatantly there and they're not in Marcus's favor right now. But again, I'll remind you, the all-star game is in Texas. It's in Arlington. It's in Globe Life Field. Do you want to see Jose Altuve starting on the Rangers home field? Do you want that? Or do you want Marcus Semien to be there? Flood the ballot box. That'll be my advice. Because at the same time, if I'm being honest, it's going to be a tough race for Marcus to win unless he gets an absolute surge from Rangers fans and people who hate the Astros. The other thing we need to talk about is the home run derby. There's going to be some changes to this year's derby, and they're not significant changes, but they are changes that when you read about them, you start to wonder, all right, well, how's this going to go this time around? So the first thing that you need to know as far as the new home run derby is concerned is they are semi-ditching the bracket style that they had done for the previous years of the derby. So instead, what they're going to do in the opening round is it'll be all 8 hitters. Each hitter will have 3 minutes and a maximum of 40 pitches seen, so as to reduce like the feel of rush in trying to get as many home runs as you can. So every hitter gets 3 minutes. You get a maximum of 40 pitches seen. You still get the one timeout. There's still bonuses if you reach a certain mark. But now bonuses come in the form of outs. They don't come in the form of a timer. So if you were to commit 3 outs in your bonus, which is anything that isn't a home run, then your round is over. And you get a bonus 4th out if you hit a home run that's over 425 feet. And Rangers Ballpark can very much serve up some 425-foot home runs. So it's a slight change from the years prior where they're semi-ditching the bracket. And what I mean by semi is that the top 4 hitters in the first round will advance into the next round. But then that next round is in a bracket style where the person who hit the most home runs will play against the hitter who hit the fewest home runs of the qualifiers. And then the 2 versus the 3 on the opposite side of the bracket. And then time limit is the same in that second round. And then it'll be the top 2 duking it out for the finish. In that final round, the time will be reduced and the amount of pitches will be reduced as well. It'll be interesting to see how it all works out. We also know of one contestant, Gunnar Henderson of the Orioles, who was playing against the Rangers when he made this announcement. He was on with the ESPN crew during the game, and that was when he officially announced that he was going to partake in the Derby. So we know of one candidate. I'm curious if you're listening this far and you have a suggestion as to who should be, if they bring the Rangers a representative for the home run derby. Should it be Wyatt Langford? Should it be Corey Seager? Adolis Garcia? Like, who would you want to be, if the Rangers get one, who would you want to be the Rangers representative of this year's home run derby? A resurgent Adrian Beltre? No, just kidding. But yeah, let me know in the comments or reach out to me at Swingin' a Mitch on X. Let me know what you think about who should be the Rangers representative in this year's home run derby if they get one. And then the last thing we want to touch on with All-Star Weekend is the Futures game. And it was announced today, again, recording this on July 2nd, Tuesday, that Sebastian Walcott, Winston Santos, and Emiliano Teodo are going to represent the Rangers in this upcoming Futures game, which will be Saturday the 13th at Globe Life Field. Speaking from experience, someone who attended a Futures game, it's really fascinating to see all of these highly talented prospects all come together and playing in a baseball game. The one I attended was in Colorado in 2021. And I remember seeing the likes of Spencer Torkelson, Brennan Davis of the Cubs. He hit 2 home runs in that game. It's a prime opportunity to see a bunch of guys are going to be very talented big leaguers one day, all playing in the same game together. And Sebastian Walcott, for my money, is one of the better hitters that the Rangers have in their organization right now. In terms of like prospects, it used to be Wyatt Langford, obviously, but now Walcott has been one of the best. And I don't mean that as a diss to Sam Huff. I don't mean that as a diss to Dustin Harris, but Sebastian Walcott might be the new soon-to-be face of this Rangers team, the way he's progressing in the minors. So that's really cool. Awesome that 3 representatives of the Rangers get to go. Excited to see what they can do when the Futures game comes around. Again, that'll be Saturday, July. I just had it. Apologies. Saturday, July 13th, I believe it was. Yes, Saturday, July 13th. So really soon. Like All-Star Weekend is creeping up on us. It's kind of crazy how quickly it arrives. Excuse me. Well, speaking of arise, that was probably because I had the Padres on the mind. Here they come, the San Diego Padres, who are coming into this series firmly in a wild card spot right now, but not by much. It's a very tight National League wild card race right now. The Padres are currently a half game ahead of the Cardinals for the second wild card spot, but then they're 3 games behind the Atlanta Braves for the first one. Padres coming in at 46-42. They've played really well as of late. They've won 8 of their last 10. So they've put themselves in prime position heading into this week. A week where they're going to face the Rangers, but then they're also going to face the Arizona Diamondbacks in a couple of series, or a series after this. So this will be important for the Rangers to really pounce on a team that needs wins and needs to gain ground. And this Padres team, they're a tough customer, man. It's also going to be a return for Jurickson Profar, who I should have mentioned in the All-Star update. Jurickson is very likely going to be starting in this year's All-Star game. He's had a ridiculously great bounce-back campaign for the Padres this year, where he's one of the leaders in batting average. He's got double-digit home runs, I should say. He's nearing the 40-50 RBI mark, and he's getting an OPS well above 900. It's like, this is a true bounce-back year for a guy that used to be the top prospect in baseball for the Texas Rangers. It's going to be cool to have him back this weekend, and then when he comes back again, another weekend from now. So looking at this series, it's going to be a 3-game series starting tonight at Globe Life Field, and it's not going to be an easy one to start. Dylan Cease, who was acquired just before the season began from the White Sox, he's going to face Nate Eovaldi. Cease is coming in with a 7-6 record and a 3.84 ERA. Nate Eovaldi's at 4-3 with a 3.45 ERA. So the increase in ERA just comes from the last couple of starts for Cease, but he's still all-star quality pitcher that you have to worry about. Game 2 on Wednesday is going to see John Gray hopefully have a bounce back, and then Adam Mazur, who is a rookie for this Padres squad, and he's had it rough trying to fill in to start this season. The ERA is above 7 at 7.25, and he's got a 1-2 record. John is coming in with a 3-4 record and a 3.77 ERA. Hopefully he can have a bounce back after that really rough outing against the Orioles. And then Thursday, the series finale, it should be a good one. Michael King, who was acquired in the Juan Soto deal this offseason from the Yankees, he's had a pretty solid season, a 6-5 record and a 3.61 ERA in his first full season as a starting pitcher. And then Max Scherzer gets his third go around, comes in with a 1-1 record, 1.74 ERA. I'm curious if he pushes the 80 pitch limit or even the 90 pitch limit in this third go around. And they're going to need a strong outing from Max in that final game of the series. Before we go, I teased that a Josh Young update was going to come, and I apologize for ditching it until now. Long story short, he suffered a setback with the wrist injury. He visited a specialist yesterday to get it checked out to make sure that there's nothing re-aggravation wise, I guess would be the word. Bruce Bochy, the manager, will likely provide an update before today's game, so keep an eye out for that. I don't have the update right now, but it sounds like Josh Young is going to be a little bit further away before he makes his return. And that's going to do it for this episode of Bleav in Texas Rangers. Again, be sure if you like what you're listening to, you download every podcast, you subscribe, share with your friends, rate 5 stars, tell everybody about it. Bite-sized Rangers content multiple times during the week. And until next time, Bleav in Texas Rangers.